Good evening.
Hello, Rabbi. Should we
I'm
reach out
just
to the girl?
I'm just texting them, yeah, to see if they're coming.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's see if they respond. Meanwhile, I'll do the thing here. Okay. Okay, so now it's got another thing here at Gimel, which says, הנכנס למרחץ, אומר יהי רצון מלפניך אדוני אלוהינו, שתכניסני לשלום. Yeah, so there's like a prayer that he says when he goes into a bathhouse. So let's see the full text in it too. See what it says here. We may be the will of God that you should bring me in peacefully and take me out peacefully. That's what it says. תוציאני ותצילני מן האור הזה, כיוצא בו, and then, right, save me from this fire, he says, right? So what does that mean? There was a fire in the bathhouse that heated the water. So I guess there was sort of a danger there with that, not really so much today. Anyway, כיוצא בו, לעתיד לבוא, תצילני מן האור הזה, וכיוצא בו, לעתיד לבוא, יצא בשלום, אומר, מודה אני לפניך, אדוני אלוהי, שהצלתני. Then when he comes out, he thanks God that he saved him, right? מן האור הזה, from this fire. All right, so apparently, right, we're not going to do this today because, we don't have this really danger involved. Well, there are some people who do die, in the bath from all kinds of things, drowning, God knows what. But there are some things that happen, even nowadays. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what Yosef says here. There are some dangers in the bath. So it says here, Bit Yosef, Perek Haroeh, right? It's over there also in the Gemara, in Brachot. ואף על פי שבגמרא לא אמרו אלא יהי רצון שתצילין מזה, even though the Gemara it's more like of a shorter prayer there, not the deluxe version we saw in the tour. כתוב בו, הריף ורמב"ם וראש כתבו כמו שכתבו רבנו. But it says that these three Rishonim, right, which are the main Rishonim, they hold, they taught like Rabbeinu, they wrote that like the Rif, I'm sorry, like the Tur. So apparently, right, that's what they hold, that that's the way the proper text is said. Okay. Anyway, so כמו שכתוב רבינו ואפשר שככה הייתה גרסת המגמרא. It says could be that their text in the Talmud was like that, and this is the reason why they have this text. ובירושלמי בכניסתו אומר. So it says in Yerushalmi, when it comes in right into the bathhouse, it says יראת צאן תצילני משרפת אש. Maybe the will that you should save me from this fire. ומהזק החמין ומן המפולת. Right, so there are several things that he mentions here, which is, the hot water also can damage somebody, and the mapolet, right? So usually mapolet means like an avalanche or something. So we'll see how that fits in. כשהוא יוצא, אומר, מודה אני לפניך, אדוני אלוהי, שהצלתני, and then he comes out, he says, like, thanks God that he saved him from there. Mina ur, from the fire. Amar Rabbi Avraham, במרחץ שהיא ניסוקת, אבל במרחץ שאינה ניסוקת, אינו אומר אלא מזג החמין הבלבד. Right, so he says, it really depends on, how the bath is structured. So what does that mean, right? Depending on, if you have a fire there going on and all kinds of stuff like that, because if you don't, so you just mention the hot water, you don't mention the fire, things like that, right? רבי חילקיה ורבי סימון בשם רבי יהושע בן לוי, תפילת המרחץ אינה טעונה. So these two rabbis said that the prayer of the bathhouse doesn't Amida. You don't have to stand when you say it. You don't have to stand. Okay, well, that's very interesting. We don't see anybody who does this today, huh? This prayer. Okay. Not really very customary. So let's see in the Shulchan Aruch what he says about this. Right, so he says when he goes into the bathhouse, right, so he makes his prayer. Um, so what is the prayer? He asks God to bring him in peacefully and take him out peacefully and save him from the fire. Right, and if he came out, unsinged, so Omer Modeh Ani Lefanecha Adonai Elohai. So then he said, thanks to God, שהצלתני מאור הזה, right, that you saved us from this fire. So, I mean, in the times of the Bet Yosef, in times of Shulchan Aruch, the bathhouse was the same thing as before. So it's not very surprising, that you have the same halacha. But nowadays, obviously, things are different, way, way different. So yeah, Mishnah Berurah already mentions it, right? So he says like this, Mishnah Berurah. ועכשיו לא נהגו בתפילה זו. So he says, nowadays we're not accustomed to say this prayer. והטעם לא נתקן אלא בימיהם שהיו מסיקים האש מלמטה וחפירה ורוחצים בבתים מלמעלה. Oh. So he says, because the whole reason why this prayer was instituted by the rabbis is because of the structure of the bathhouse in those days. So what does that mean? That the fire was located below the bath, and, and you're bathing above, right, in your tank, in your tub, whatever it is, right? And Shalgav Jish Chashash Pen Tifatach Patave Plura Toho. Right. So he says there's a couple things which are dangerous, right, with this kind of structure. One is that it could open up and it could fall inside. Oh my God. That's pretty scary. You don't want that. Hmm. So he says, but nowadays, Omed Tanum Bezavit Veleka Sakana Achora. So he says, but nowadays the thing is that the this whole, fireplace is located in a corner and not below. So therefore, as the structure is different, so there is no danger, the aforementioned danger that we mentioned. Okay, great. That's the idea. So, okay, well, that's pretty obvious. I mean, nobody does this today. It is, especially with our bath, which is like totally different altogether. Okay, great. So that's Gimel. Let's go to Dalet. Now he's talking about bloodletting, right? This is also something we don't do today. In the old days, they used to do bloodletting. So let's see what we got here. So it says, right, that if he comes in to do bloodletting, there's also prayer for that, because there's obviously danger involved there, because he's removing blood from his body. Um, so I'll look in the Torah and see exactly what the text is here. So he says like this, right? אומר יהי רצון מלפניך השם אלוקיי, שיהיה עסק זה לי לרפואה. He prays that this should be, for healing, this bloodletting. כי רופא חינם תמנתה, because you are the right, the healer. God is the healer. ולאחר הוא שהקיז, and then after he finishes, אומר ברוך רופא חולים, right? He blessed is the one who heals the sick. ולעולם יהיה אדם רגיל לומר כל מה דאביד. Okay, so that's already something else. So yeah, again, right, this is not really relevant in our times, but I'll just read through it, quickly and put it behind us. So it says here in the Beit Yosef, גם זה פרק הרואה שם כתוב וסמ"ג. It's also said there in the that same parak in the Gemara, and says the smug over there, Baruch Ata Hashem Rofech Olim. Right, so he says you have to say it with the name of God. This blessing that he heals the sick. וכך Rambam also says that. ומשמע הוא הדין דמזכיר מלכות. Oh, right. So therefore, right, you also mention the kingdom as well. רבנו שלא הזכיר לא שם ולא מלכות. So what about the two? Right, he didn't mention any of these things. נראה שסמך על מה שכתב בסימן רי"ח. It seems like he's relying on something where he wrote in a different chapter in 218 שבכל הברכות צריך להזכיר that all the blessings he has to mention at Shem Malchut, the name of God and the kingdom. Okay, great. So that's the end of it. And let's go to Shulchan Aruch. As we said, right, it's not customary today, all this stuff. So it says here, הנכנס להקיס דם, אומר יהי רצון מלפניך אדוני אלוהי, שיהא עסק זה לי לרפואה. So he says, right, this, and when he goes into bloodlet, it should be for healing. Right? ולאחר יקיז יאמר ברוך רופא חולים. And then afterwards he says, right, blessed is the one who heals the sick. So let's just see Mishnah Berurah, what he says about this. So Mishnah Berurah also adds something else, It says really the same also applies to any other medical procedure that a person does, right? So I guess that would include surgery, right? So he should say this prayer. Yeah, it is actually, found in some of the prayer books, you'll find this that they tell you to do it for a medical procedure. I knew one person also, who would do it when they would take medicine, and I was like telling them, I think you're exaggerating a little bit. The rabbis never said that. Okay, whatever. Some people take it a little bit too. Some people take it a little bit too far. These things. So God bless them. But anyway, yeah. So let's see what else he says here. So interesting, right? Regarding the blessing that we just mentioned. So he says, right, you have to say it with the name of God and everything. The whole thing, the deluxe version. But he says, I didn't see anybody who was accustomed to do so. He brings us in the name of the Pri Megadim, right? That nobody does it. מי שמתעטש בחברו אומר לו לעשות... Okay, so yeah. So again, right, this is not very commonplace for us, for sure not bloodletting. But it would be proper, to say this when you're, as we said, right, going in for some kind of a procedure, surgery, things like this. It would be definitely proper to do so. So the truth is, that if he came out, alive and well, definitely he could make this blessing as well, with the name of God and everything. There definitely would not be a problem with that. Okay, I don't know to tell you. Perhaps better to avoid saying the name of God, since it was really made for bloodletting, this whole thing. Just see where he gets this from. Yeah, so the truth is, that like here he brings in the Sharat Tziyun that this was, learned by derived by the, later authorities. That since, the rabbis told you to do it for bloodletting, so you should also do it for procedures, But the truth is, we don't really see that in the Talmud, that it was made for procedures. I take it as it is. So therefore, probably, the proper thing to do would be not to mention the name of God in this prayer, in this blessing, because it wasn't really made for that. Okay, that sounds good to me. I don't know, whatever, it's all. Not really so relevant for us, but anyway, it is what it is. So we'll go to Hey. This is a little bit more relevant, a little bit more thing here. So it says in the, let's see, go to bit Yosef. So it says the two are like this, right? This is a famous Talmudic dictum. What does it say? לעולם יהיה אדם רגיל לומר כל מאי דעביד רחמנא לטב עביד, right? So a person should be regular to say that whatever Hashem does, he does it for the best, for the benefit, right? So that, is a big principle in Judaism. Right? Everybody knows that. And, so that means that a person has to have the faith to know that whatever happened, whatever the outcome was of whatever happened, it's all from Hashem, and take it with a good spirit. Right? And I just saw recently also on the Zohar Kadosh, he says that regarding this, that the whole point, of like, when a person is suffering, is to accept it with, with love, and not to reject it. Because if he's rejecting it, and complaining, he's kind of like defeating the purpose of the suffering. Easier said than done. But anyway, right? That's the goal. So regarding this, right, just mentions Bet Yosef that this is also in the Gemara there in Brachot Samech Hamud Bet. So if you want to see, right, the source, go there. Okay, great. So what else we got? Okay, that's the end of the chapter. Great. So, oh, believe it or not, we just finished the laws of blessings. Oh my God. We're going to a different topic now. So, all right, that's good. That's a milestone. Now you can say, I learned the laws of blessings, yeah, from beginning to end. And if you didn't catch every lecture, so go back and review them. This way you'll get everything, God willing. Okay, so just read the Shulchan Aruch and move on. גיל לומר, כל מאן דעביד רחמנא לטב עביד. As we said, right? Shulchan Aruch says, person always should be regular to say, accustomed to say, whatever Hashem does is for the best. That's it, just, simple faith, right? That's the best thing. Nothing beats that. Okay, great. So we'll move on. Yeah, done. We're done with the brachot. Okay, now we're going to Reish Lamed Aleph. So now, what does he talk about here afterwards? He's talking about, the order of the day. What does a person do throughout the day? Things like this, right? The prayers and right the activity, the Torah study and things like this, so forth, so on. So I'll just bring it up in the Shulchan Aruch and we'll move on. Okay, it's a short one. Okay, so this is actually a very important halakha to know, to understand. So I'm glad we're covering it. It's very good. So the first thing the tour says, right, is that it says like this: "Achar shegamar avodato seudato yachazor lilmod." Oh, so he says, right, once you finish your seudah, go back to learn Torah. Oh boy, oh, that's what you gotta do, right? Okay, so right, make sure you do that after you, right, eat breakfast. Go back to learn Torah. ואם אי אפשר לו ללמוד בלא שינת שלהם. So he says if he's not able to do it at that point, so what does that mean? He needs to take a nap, right? He needs a nap. He didn't sleep so good at night, right? Like me, I'm the person, I'm the best example. So, okay. So, right, person like that, he needs an afternoon nap, right? Definitely, I can agree with that. Okay, so just to to make you understand, right, the structure here, right, to the order. First, we said that, the first thing you should do, obviously, is pray, and when he prays, he goes to study Torah, and then, he does some work, labor, whatever, right? If he's, And
Is
then
it
he
starting?
eats.
Are we talking about starting from morning or is starting from the night?
No, this
In
is
the
from,
morning.
yeah, of course, yeah, from the morning, right? So he does shachrit, and then he goes, to learn, right? Next step is breakfast. So, why do I tell you this? It's important to understand this whole sequence. You know why? Because truth is, a person, who eats just prayed shachrit, the first thing he should do is not to eat breakfast. The first thing he should do is learn. Because it's too early to eat. What are you eating at what, 7:30? You want to eat 8 o'clock, you want to eat breakfast? It's too early. Who does that? I know some people who do it, but I don't know. I honestly, I don't even know how they're hungry at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm not really sure what kind of appetite they have, Not really sure what's going on there. But, some people do it for a good reason, and the reason is because they're going to work. If they don't eat there, they're not going to eat at all. That's something else. I'm not talking about that. They need to have energy to work. So if they're going to work, there's no choice. They have to have something to eat before they go. And but we did talk about, if I'm not mistaken, we covered it. If not, we should cover it, right? About pachachrit, which is right. Before you eat breakfast, they recommend to you, to have a little snack, like something, a little bit of bread, you know. So you're not supposed to have really a lot. It's not a meal. The point is, is just to like to fill your stomach up a little bit to hold you over, But in the Talmud, they're very adamant about this pachachrit business, and the reason is because they say it prevents all kinds of illnesses. It's a good deal. I mean, I don't know what it's like. It says that there it prevents like 80 illnesses, when you have a little pachachrit. So a person could do that with bread, or with some, let's say, some mezonot, so same thing, right? Some borekas, I don't know, God knows what, croissant, I don't know, God knows what. All that stuff, the mezonot. You can also have some of that, But the point is, right? It says there that you should have a little bit, just like a mouthful. So what does that mean, mouthful? Like an egg size, That's it. Like that's it. Not really a big meal. And that's considered to be a very healthy thing. I must tell you though, that a lot of big chachamim they don't do this. They didn't do it just because they want to learn. They don't want to eat nothing. Their desire to learn is too strong. They can't. They can't hold it back. So they don't take time to have pachachrit. But the truth is, the Talmud says it's a very healthy and good thing to do. So, that's the thing. So that was Pachachrit, that was before. But then we told you, to go and learn after Shachrit, and do some study. And, if you want to do your labor, you got some work plans going on. So you go do your work. Uh, but eventually you got to sit down to have breakfast. You know what I mean? So we mentioned that, depending on who the person is, right? If he's a regular balabait, so you should eat by, the fourth hour, you know what I mean? And the rabbis are supposed to eat, the Talmidei Chachamim are supposed to eat a little bit later, like before Chatzot, before midday. You really shouldn't go, till midday and not eat nothing, because probably the energy will be depleted. You won't have the energy for it. There are some people who can do these kinds of things, because they're very strong. So, if you know yourself and you're strong enough, and you can pull it off and you can muster it. Be my guest. Don't let me bother you. We're talking about mortals. Human beings. Normal humans. Not like Baba Sali who used to fast all week. I mean, he didn't eat all week. Baba Sali, he only ate on Shabbat. Fasted all week. So I'm not talking about people like that. Okay, obviously you get the point, right? But the point is, once you finish shacharit, right? And you finish the breakfast. I'm sorry, right? Now you have two options, right? The best option is to go and learn more Torah, right? How much, I'm not telling you, theoretically here, but the truth is, this is what it says. How much Torah is a person supposed to learn all day? Like ideally speaking, right? So, according to Shulchan Aruch, he should learn 9 hours a day and work 3 hours a day, to make a living. This is the ideal situation, right? That's what he should do. So, that's what he's talking about here, right? You've already learned, let's say 2, 3 hours in the morning, and now since you ate, go back to learn more. So you can, fulfill your quota of 9 hours. That's the whole point, right? Okay, great. So that's what we're talking about here. But on the other hand, right, it's telling you that if you, are not able to learn at that point because you're drowsy, so you can take a nap. Take a nap for a couple of hours. 1 or 2 hours. Take a nap until you feel rested, and then go back to learn afterwards. Okay, so let me just see what it says here, right? The actual language. Just give you like an overview, what we're talking about here, so you should understand what we're holding. Okay, so he says, right, that you could take a nap, as we said, but he says, "Ubidvat shelo yarich ba'arbe," but don't make it too long. After all, it's the daytime. You're not supposed to be, having your main sleep in the daytime. You're supposed to having just a little nap there, as we said. So great. What else we got here? So it says here, it brings the Gemara, Krasina beSukkah Perek HaYashen, right? In Masechet Sukkah, Kaf Vav Amud Aleph, Amar Rabbi, Asur Rishon Bayom. Oh, right. So this is I think it's a Rav, whatever, but anyway, it says you're not allowed to sleep during the daytime, right? So, we got to fit that in somehow into what we just said. Yoter Mishina Tasus. Oh, so it says you cannot sleep more than a horse. Bekama Yishina Tasus. How much is the sleep of the horse? And Shitin Nishme. It's right 60 breaths. Abaya. So now we're talking like a couple of minutes there. Abaya Naim Miki Ail Mibe Kove. Right. So Abaye would sleep, when he came back from the Bekove, Le Pumbedita, right? In other words, he traveled from one town to another. Kare ale Rav Yosef ad matay atzel tishkav. So they say, right? Rav Yosef used to, mock him. Like, how long are you gonna sleep? Buddy, like, you're not supposed to be sleeping in the daytime. Hey, wake up. Time to wake up. ואף בזה המעט לא תהא כוונתו לענת גופו. So then he, right, reiterates the tour, right? That he says the point here is not to take pleasure in taking a nap. That's not the point. It's not Shabbat after all, right? It's a weekday, so we're not talking about pleasure here. So what's the point? The point is, to be able to have the concentration to learn afterwards. So you take only that much. You just want to be strong enough to serve Hashem. בעולם הזה לא יכוון לענות אלוה בעבודת עבודה. So in other words, here also he brings in this famous dictum, right? Yeah, so maybe I'll wait for this, because this dictum is actually very, very important to understand. Okay, it can be a revolutionary dictum for a person, if he knows this. It can alter his whole life. So let's just see Bit Yosef, let's catch up and see where we are. Yeah, so Bet Yosef basically just, says the whole thing, is we already went through this sequence in Mem Zayin, right? Chapter 47. This whole thing there. Okay. That's one thing. And then he brings this other source, Katav HaAgur, right? The Agur says, B'siman Gimel, B'shem Rabbeinu Yehuda Mishapira, he brings the name of this rabbi, שכאשר נאור בשנתו של שנת היום, צריך לברך אלוקי נשמה. Oh, so he says, right, an interesting thing, if you took a nap during the daytime, you do have to say אלוקי נשמה, like you do in the morning when you slept at night. על כן ישנו. וכן כתוב בשיבול הלקט. Also this rabbi says, בשם רבנו שמחה, name of this rabbi, ורבנו אביגדור הכהן, and also this rabbi, right? Okay. So it says Maran, right, that our custom is now not to do this. So what does that mean? When we sleep and take a nap in the daytime, we don't say any prayers when we wake up. There's nothing, no blessings, no prayers there. You've already done everything in the morning, so there's no reason to come back and do it again in the afternoon. Okay, great. So that's the end of the Bet Yosef. Very short chapter here. So let's see Shulchan Aruch. So I guess what we should do is go back to the tour and finish it because we're going to see the Shulchan Aruch as well. So as we said, right, this famous dictum, right, which is something very, very important to understand. So a person, whatever he takes, pleasure in this world. So he says, lo yichaven le'anato. He shouldn't, his intention should not be for pleasure to do these things, except on Shabbat, right? That's something else. We're not talking about Shabbat. We're talking about weekdays. So he shouldn't have, this intention. Rather, his whole intention should be, to serve God. So what does that mean? Everything you do, you say, oh, I'm doing this, so I can do, the mitzvot better, the Torah better. So if a person has this mentality, right, this approach to life, so what happens? You know what happens? I'll tell you. That everything he does becomes a mitzvah, Every activity he does. Why? Because he intends everything to be for the service of the Creator. So then everything he does becomes a mitzvah. Whether it's going to the bathroom, or sleeping or eating, right? Yeah, he says, he thinks I'm eating, why? So I should have the strength to learn Torah, to do mitzvot. If he has this approach, this kavanah, this intention, and changes the whole ball game. Everything becomes a mitzvah. All right, great. So that's an important thing to understand. So he says also Rabbeinu Yonah in Pirkei Avot mentions this. He also says, right, that everything you do should be l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Everything you do. Even things which are optional. Right? Like what? Like eating and drinking, and walking, right? And sitting, and getting up, and also the right sexual activity, and the conversation that he has, right? And also the needs of your body, taking care of your body, and so forth and so on. So they should all be for the service of God. And or לדבר גורם לעבודתו, or something which, what do you call it, brings on the service of God. So he says, then how does that work when it comes to eating and drinking? Right? Oh, so I don't have to tell you, right, that don't eat and drink things, which are forbidden to do, to eat and drink. Obviously, we don't have to tell you that. So what does that mean? Even if he eats something, which is allowed, permissible, and he's hungry, and thirsty, so he says if he does it for the pleasure of his body, this is not the praiseworthy way to do it. But rather, right, his intention should be to fulfill, right, the needs of his body, in order to have the life, and serve the Creator. Okay, great. So that's important concept to understand. Heshiva ve'kima ve'alicha ketzad. What about when it comes to eating and, not eating, but I'm sorry, sitting and walking and rising? אינו צריך לומר שלא ישב במושב לצים. I don't need to tell you, right? So you shouldn't sit in a moshav letzim, right? So this is like an important concept in halacha. A moshav letzim. What is that? Bunch of jokers, would just sit and joke around, talking about all kinds of nonsense. All kinds of scoffers, and right, people like this. Which is, not allowed to sit with people like that. And if you want a source for this, go look in the first parak of Tehillim, right? It's going to tell you right there. So, great. ושלא לעמוד בדרך החטאים. Also, you shouldn't, stand around with the sinners, right? Yeah, let's do it. So this is an important thing also, and a person has to understand, like don't, hang around with bad company, people who are, sinners. Don't hang around with people like that. What do you want from them? What are you looking for? Are you looking for something with these people? Why hang around with the people like that? They're just going to give you bad influence, right? That's going to, they're going to cause you to sin. They're going to catch you with something. These sinners. That's why you're not supposed to hang around people like that. No, but he says, even if you're sitting with good people, still, right? With righteous people, to stand with them, and go with the good people. But if he's doing it, for self gratification, whatever, that's not a good thing, right? You should be thinking to do even this l'shem shamayim. בטבעתו אין זה משובח, אלא אם כן עשה לשם שמיים. It's only good if he does לשם שמיים. Okay, great. So that's also a very important thing, right? All this stuff is very important. No, not like, these amiratzot you find, right? These ignorant people. Everything they do is for their own pleasure, Everything they do, is just like, oh, how can I get, the next cheap thrill, in life? How can I, fulfill my desires? That's what they're looking for always. This is their whole goal, So the truth is, the Chazal, what they call these people? They call them animals. They live like animals, that's what they are. Like what? You're an animal? But all you do, everything is like just to please your body. That's not a good way to live, You shouldn't have this kind of a lifestyle. I mean, everything you do should be l'shem shamayim, and not for your own bodily pleasure, so forth, so on, and so forth. Okay, so you got the point. So great. That elevates a person, into a different level in life. What are you looking for? What's your objective in life? Okay, great. So let's move on. Same thing also he explains, right, regarding, things like sleep, right? So you should have the right intention, not to take pleasure in sleeping, but rather, right, to get up, and serve his creator, with energy, with the proper energy, proper concentration, and so forth, so on. Yeah. כן, שיהיה לעיניו ולגופו מנוחה לצורך הבריאות, ושלא תתערב דעתו בתורת מחמת הגייה. Right. And also, right, that he shouldn't get, overloaded his mind because he doesn't have the proper energy, because he didn't sleep enough, So that should be his intention when he sleeps. Tashmish. Okay, so there you go, right? And it continues. What about sexual relations, right? What should be your intention there, right? Kids, I don't need to tell you, right? Don't do something sinful, some sinful relations. Don't do that stuff. Right? You don't want to touch that stuff. אלא אפילו בעונת האמורה בתורה. So it says, even if you're doing like, within the confines of the Torah, right, the halacha, sexual relations. Also there, you have to have the proper intention. אם עשה להנאת גופו, if you're doing it just for pleasure, או להשלים תאוותו, הרי זה מגונה. So it says that's considered to be like, disgraceful. ואפילו אם התכוון כדי לשיעור לו בנים שישמשו אותו. So he says, even if his intention is to have children that should serve him, to honor him. Right? וימלאו מקומו, or take his place, right? אין זה משובח. That's also not praiseworthy. It shouldn't be for selfish purposes. That's the whole point, right? אלא אם כן התכוון שיהיו לו בנים לעבודת בוראו. But the proper intention is that you have children, to serve God, that they should be also serving God, the children. או שנתכוון לשמש מיתתו, לקיים עונת האמורה בתורה, right? And also, right, to do the mitzvah, right, of being with your wife, according to the schedule that we have. And we spoke about that already one time. So, the schedule, the proper timing, so forth and so on. And you can find my classes on that too. You'll find it if you look. Okay, so great, fantastic. It's all there. And what else we got here? So it says it's like basically, you're fulfilling your obligation. It's like, you're obligated to do so. For the sake of your wife, for the sake of having good children, so forth and so on, right? That should be your intention. Fantastic. Okay, great. So let's move on. We already spoke about this before, but just, it just comes to my mind that we learned about this in Shulchan Aruch already, but Maran, Rabbi my rabbi, used to say, one time when he was giving a lecture, he says, you find these kids, like, some people have kids who are not really, so spiritual, like more like physically, oriented, right? They can't really get the spiritual, side of them, to get moving. Right? Like very, very humdrum, kind of a child, very, mediocre. So why is that? So he says the reason is because they're having relations with their wives too early, right? Instead of waiting until midnight, they're doing it, like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, which is way, way too early for that. And that's why the children are not coming out so spiritual. So don't forget that, right? Wait till midnight. Right, there you go. So yeah. Fantastic. Let's move on. So now it talks about right, conversation, conversing with people, right? What should be the intention there? And I don't say לספר לשון הרע. I don't need to tell you, right? Don't talk לשון הרע, right? Nivlut peh, or like, right, the curse words, things like this, right? That I don't need to tell you because that's forbidden altogether. Like this. There's no big chidush there, right? No novel idea there. אלא אפילו לספר בדברי חכמים שתהיה כוונתו לעבודת הבורא. So even if he's talking like the words of the rabbis, the words of wisdom, that should also have the right intention, to serve God, right? Or to something which brings upon that, right? Brings forth that. כללו של דבר. So what does that mean? Don't say divrei Torah, just to impress people, and show them how wise you are. Oh yeah, this guy is so wise. He knows all this divrei Torah. Right? Oh, he's so impressive. Why you want to impress people? Just to teach them Torah so they can do mitzvot. What do you care about impressing them for? Why should that be your intention? What are you, hot shot? What are you? You know? Okay, great. So then he goes on, right, the tour here. He's taking saying some very, there's a very comprehensive kind of a treatment here that he's giving. So then he says, right, that also um, a person has to pay attention, he says, right? חייב אדם לשום עיניו וליבו על דרכיו ולשקול את כל מעשיו. You know what it is? He's always got to be like, having that, that meter, right? Of, gauging his deeds and his words, right? The way he conducts himself. Make sure that he's doing everything, in the appropriate manner, appropriate, the proportionality has to be there, right? The proper, uh, so, always got to be thinking about, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? Is this the proper thing to say or it's not proper to say this? So he's got to, like always make that judgment call, you know, regarding everything he does, is this the proper thing to do? Or am I, going a little bit, out of bounds? It shouldn't be like that, right? You got to be careful, Stay within the bounds. You got to use your judgment. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't do this because they're not careful about, what they do or what they say. They don't think things through. What's going to cause what, you know? And, they don't weigh it properly. And because of that, they come to do like very foolish things, foolish behavior. That's not a good thing. So that's what we're talking about. You gotta be a wise person who weighs his steps. And don't say too much and don't do too much, right? Or too little, right? You gotta make sure you're on the right path. That's the thing, Unfortunately, a lot of people make mistakes. They say things, they shouldn't say. And people get offended, God knows what, right? It has all kinds of repercussions, because he didn't talk the proper way. He didn't weigh his words. It's also a problem, all kinds of things like that, right? So that's why Hashem gave us an intellect, you know what I mean? Because we should be able to do this kind of thing. We're not animals after all, you know what I mean? Animals don't have intellect. They just go according to their instincts. You know what I mean? They have some kind of brain, but intellect they don't have, this kind of like, savoir faire kind of behavior, they don't care about that. They just take care of their needs. But humans should be above that. That's the whole point, right? That's not enough. After all, we're not animals, we're not the same thing. Okay, great. So let's move on. So it says, ומי שמידות הללו מצויות בו, נמצא עובד את הבורות כל ימיו. So it says, if he has all these character traits, right, that we mentioned, right, all these qualities, he's serving Hashem, right, all his life like this, so he's got the best life. That's the best way to live. אפילו בשעת שביתו, שבתו וקומו והילוכו, בשעת משאו ומתנו, right? So whatever he does, throughout the day, whether it's business, right, or all kinds of things like this, conduct in all kinds of areas of life, אפילו באכילתו, even the way he eats, right, also, the way he drinks, אפילו בתשמישו, right? So, there's a proper way to eat as well, right? We already spoke about that, right? When we talked about the laws of the meal, laws of the Seudah, there's improper ways to eat and drink, looking like a glutton, looking like like an animal, behaving animalistically. No derech eretz, no proper manners, It's not good to be like that. So a person has to do that too properly. Yeah, and also as we said, right, sexual relations, you got to do that properly. We had classes on that, right? So if you want to, look into that, look into those classes. I think we call that the laws of modesty, right? Because that's what they call in the Shulchan Aruch. So look at the laws of modesty, right? We already discussed that. We put it down, so it's there. It's on a cloud somewhere. Okay, so what else we got here? The whole Tzarcha says always needs the same thing. דרך הזה זקף רבנו הקדוש אצבעותיו למעלה בשעת מיתתו ואמר גלוי וידוע. Oh, wow. So he says, Rabbeinu Kadosh, right, who's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, when he passed away, right, he made this declaration. What was the declaration? It says, Galui biyadua lefanecha, right? It's revealed before you, right? In other words, talking to God. Shelo neheneti mehem. He says, I never, took any pleasure from this world. What does that mean? Never took pleasure. Never got pleasure from anything? No, what that means is that he didn't do it for bodily pleasure. He did it l'shem shemayim, for the mitzvah. You know, he never did anything just for his bodily pleasure. That's a good level. That's where we want to be. That's what we want to strive for. Okay, so great. So I see I went a little bit long, so maybe I guess we'll finish it off next time. B'ezrat Hashem, I don't want to keep you too long, so I'll let you go. You know what?
It's almost done. It's almost
Yeah,
done.
yeah. I was just gonna say that. If you guys have like 2 minutes, we can finish it off. But I don't know. It's up to you. Whatever. It's if you have the patience a little bit. I have the patience. No problem from my side. Okay. So anyway, right? So that's what he said, right? Right? So he says if he's taking a nap in the afternoon, right? And he's sitting, right? Not lying down. He doesn't, when he wakes up, doesn't have to say Birkat Torah. We don't say it anyway, by the way, because there's a doubt regarding this. When he comes back to learn, but if he slept on his bed, right, so then it was like a permanent sleep there. So therefore, right, he does have to bless. But we don't pass him like that. So it says if he lie down on his bed to sleep, right? He wasn't able to sleep. He's not called really interruption. He doesn't have to bless. So as we said, right, by us, we don't bless when we sleep in the daytime. That's the rule by us because of the Tao. Okay, great. So let's go to Bet Yosef. I think we already did that. Finished it pretty much. Right. So let's go to Shulchan Aruch and we're done. So says Shulchan Aruch, if he's not able to learn, without taking a nap, yashin. So take a nap, and then learn afterwards, right? It says Rama Haga, when he wakes up, he doesn't have to say Elokai Neshama, right? As we said, we're not accustomed to do these things. So some say, right, he should read a little bit before he goes to sleep. In other words, read some Torah. I'm sorry, not really Torah. It's this thing, right? It's from a Tehillim, Noam, right? It's also Torah. Tehillim Tzadik, right? The Yuzain, this Noam. Okay, whatever. It's all good. Vivad shelo yarich ba, but he says don't take too much of a nap. She'asur lishon bayom yoter mishinat asus. Why? Because you're not allowed to sleep, right? More than the sleep of the horse, right? Shehu shitim nishme, right? Which is, as we said, right, a couple of minutes. But he shouldn't have intention, right, for the pleasure of his body when he does this. Takes his nap. Okay. אלא שהחזיק גופו לעבודת השם יתברך. Rather it should be, to keep his body strong to serve Hashem. וכן בכל מה שיהנה בעולם הזה. Whatever he gets pleasure in this world, לא יכוון להנאתו, right? It shouldn't be for his bodily pleasure, אלא לעבודת הבורא. Rather it should be, right, as we said, for the service of God. כדכתיב בכל דרכיך דאהו. Because as it says, right, that you should know in all your ways. פסוק משלי. ואמרו חכמים, כל מעשיך יהיו לשם שמיים. And the rabbi said, right, that all your deeds should be for the sake of heaven. שאפילו דברים של רשות, even things which are, right, optional, כגון האכילה ושתייה בהליכה ושיבה, like eating and drinking, right, and walking and right, sitting and קימה and rising, right, תשמיש, sexual relations, והשיחה and speaking, בכל צורכי גופך, right, all the needs of your body, יהיו כולך לעבודת הבריך. They should all be for the sake of serving your creator. Okay. או לדבר הגורם עבודתו, right? Or something which, causes that. שאפילו היה צמא ורעב, even if he was hungry and thirsty, אם אכל ושתה להנאתו אינו משובח. If he did it, to eat and drink for the pleasure of his body, it's no good. אלא התכוון שאוכל וישתה כפי חיותו. Rather, his intention should be, just to stay alive, keep himself alive. לעבוד את הבורא, to serve God, וכן אפילו לשב בסוד ישרים, לעמוד במקום צדיקים, right? Even if you want to, associate with the righteous people, ללך בצאת התמימים, אם עשה להנאת עצמו, if he's doing it for his own pleasure, because he likes to hang around, with his buddies, right? That's not a good thing, right? והשלים יחסו בתאוותו, משובח, עליהם עשה לשם השמיים, וכן בשכיבה. So he says you should be doing לשם השמיים also that. And also regarding writing down, אני לא צריך לומר שבזמן שיכול לעסוק בתורה ומצוות לא יגרה בשינה לענג עצמו. I don't need to tell you, right? So that when you could, if you have the strength to learn, you shouldn't, just go to sleep because, you want to get some pleasure from it, enjoy a nap. What does it have to do with enjoyment? Excuse me. You don't need it. You don't need it. So go and learn Torah. Why wasting your time? They say the Chazal, by the way, that a person gets punished for this, for sleeping too much. If he doesn't need it, then overdoing it. Okay. So, אני לא צריך לומר שבזמן שיכול לעסוק בתורה, מצוות לא יתגרה בשינה ויגע מנהגתו, אלא אפילו בזמן שהוא יגיע וצריך לישון כדי לנוח בנגיעתו. And if he's just doing it, to rest because he's tired, אם עשה הנעת גופו, but if he's doing it for the pleasure of his body, אינו משובח. That's not really praiseworthy way. אלא התכוון לתת שינה לעיניו. Rather, it should be, right, to sleep, גופו, מנוחה לצורך הבריאות. That should be healthy to serve God. שלא תתערף דתו, you should have, proper concentration. בתורת בחמת מניעת השינה, because he's lacking sleep. וכן מתשמיש אמורה בתורה, right? Also, as we said, sexual relations, right? אם עשה להשלים תאוותו, so if he did it, to, right, to, fulfill his lust, or להנאת גופו, right, or to enjoy, הרי זה מגונה, that's not praiseworthy, right? That's disgraceful. אפילו אם מתכוון כדי שיהיו לא בנים שישמשו אותו. Even if his intention is to have children, to serve him, וימלאו מקומו, right, and take his place, אינו משובח, it's not praiseworthy. אלא התכוון שיהיו לו בנים לעבודת בוראו. Rather, it should be, they should have children to serve God. או שהתכוון לקיים מצוות עונה, or should have the mitzvah to do, right, the עונה, right, which is the schedule with his wife, מצוות עונה, כאדם פורע חובו, like a person who's paying his debt. וכן בשיחה, same thing with speaking. אפילו לספר בדברי תורה, even if he's speaking about דברי תורה, צריך שתהיה כוונתו לעבודת בורא. That should also be, לשם שמיים, to serve God, or to something which brings service of God. כללו של דבר, so he says, the general rule is, don't forget this, right? חייב אדם לשום אליו, ליבו על דרכיו ולשקול מעשיו במאזנך שכלו. Right, so he says, right, a person has to weigh his steps and his path, right? Make sure he's doing everything in the proper proportion, proper intention, so forth, so on. כשרואה דבר שיעבור לידי עבודת הבורא, יתברך יעשהו. So if he sees something, which is going to help him to serve God, that's what he should do, right? For that purpose. ואם לאו לא יעשהו. Otherwise, you shouldn't do it, right? Like these people, who eat for pleasure, what I mean? Oh, it tastes good. That's why you eat it? You're not hungry? So why? Why? Because you want to enjoy the taste, huh? That's what he's talking about. Things like this, right? That's not the proper way to live like that. Okay. If you're not hungry, you're eating just for pleasure. Oh, it's not good. That's not a good thing. They punish you for that too, by the way, for eating, for pleasure and sleeping for pleasure when you don't need it. They punish you for that. That's what the Chazal is saying. Okay. ואם לאו לא יעשהו, ומי שנוהג כן, so it says whoever does like this, like we mentioned here, עובד את בורות תמיד, he's always serving God, right? No matter what he's doing, he's serving Hashem. Even if he's in the bathroom, he's serving Hashem, So there you go, right? What can be better than that? Okay, thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness, B'ezrat Hashem. So we'll continue with the next chapter next time. And we will see you, B'ezrat Hashem. We'll see what's going to be tomorrow. We'll try to do the class tomorrow. I do have to fly out, on Thursday, so we'll see what happens. But I hope everything works out. The timetable works out well. Okay, fantastic. So, Chazak Baruch, Laila Tov. Thanks for coming. We'll
Thank
see
you,
you soon.
Lalato.
God bless.